Hello there. You all know my name by now. Those of you who don't, I am Mighty Cthulhu. Today, I will be talking about thematic dungeons and Dungeons and Dragons. Nearing the Halloween season, so I figured this might be a little bit thematic. I tried to do a lighting effect here, but it's failing miserably. I just have a desk lamp on, but I'm going to keep it on anyway. Plus, the lighting I normally use in my room kind of went on the fritz. Like, I mean, the light bulbs isn't even dead. The fixture came out. So, and I'm not an electrician. The last time I messed with anything like that, well, let's just say it wasn't pleasant. Anyway, thematic dungeons. Last year, 2 years ago maybe, I had a very large group, and they said, why don't we ever do any seasonal dungeons? And they were joking. But being myself, I, of course, actually did one. I did a Christmas dungeon, and basically the story was Santa, the king of the elves in this universe, we called him, and the man in the red suit, we also called him. He was basically the king of the elves. He controlled their politics as well as delivering presents on Christmas. But he was, I don't know if you'd call it kidnapped, taken hostage by a drow. The drow disguised himself as Santa, and basically we were sent to the North Pole to investigate. Well, in this universe, it wasn't the North Pole. It was the frozen wasteland. That's what we called it. Because my world's a little different. Maybe I'll go into more detail in later videos. But this week, I'm not going to be talking about Christmas dungeons. I'm going to be talking about Halloween dungeons. Because as you know, Halloween is in 8 days. Yeah, my favorite holiday. I actually got some Halloween candy already. Please don't bash me for doing that. Anyway. Sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second there. To make a scary dungeon, again, as I've said before, you really need to focus on story. And things that work with it are creatures like undead, a dark atmosphere, you know, like, who knows, maybe a forbidden castle. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some horror RPGs today. But let's focus on D&D for now. You take a lot of creepier monsters, and you make sure that your PCs are in constant danger. It's not scary if they can't die. If they can't die, it's like Dragon Ball Z. You know, it loses its effect after a while because everybody just keeps coming back to life. But if your characters can't die, and you can't just give them death. You have to give them a terrible fate, like sealed in a box for all eternity or something crazy like that. That's what I use in one of mine. Maybe having to relive their death again and again. And when you DM, you have to be very, very, very descriptive. Not only that, but you have to, again, promote a dark atmosphere. And you have to have good PCs, too, because you can't really do a dungeon like that if your PCs aren't serious. Like, if you're like, it's very dark, you can hear the creaking wood. And you smell the smell of death in the air, as well as graveyard soil. And out of nowhere, someone goes, it's kind of going to ruin it. Yes, that, again, is coming from real-life experience. I'm sorry. It made me laugh, but it kind of ruined my dungeon. But, I'm describing the dark mansion. Somebody makes a fart noise. Yeah, if you have PCs like that, don't even bother. I mean, some of them can be like that and still run a good character, but some people can't keep themselves serious in a more serious situation. So, it's not going to work unless you want to take that person out for now. Another thing is, sometimes this particular system doesn't really work, because again, it's about attacking and fighting. So, sometimes you want to try a whole different game, but again, we'll talk about that in a bit. Some good books for this are, let me see if I have them nearby, actually. And, of course, I don't have the books I need near me. They're buried. Let's see. Fiendish Codex 2. This is good for horror. It's good for creating a dark atmosphere. Libris Mortis, I don't care how it's pronounced. Book of the Undead. This has some really good stuff. Like, when you've got undead that can think, you've got thinking living zombies, you got a good campaign going. A good horror campaign, anyway. That's really about it. Well, that's all I have for a good horror dungeon. But if you really look, again, torrents, not suggesting it, but they're there. You can get books like the Book of Vile Darkness, which, talks about rituals and horror and just being an evil character. And there's one book out there called Heroes of Horror. And it basically gives you a little bit about what I'm currently talking about. In fact, it gives you more than a little bit. It gives you a crap load. But on to other games. There's one, I don't know if you really consider it another game. It's D&D related. It's called Ravenloft. It takes place in maybe the 1920s, I think. And it has to do with this castle. And I'm not really very familiar with it. I almost bought Ravenloft D20, but ended up not. But it involves vampires and stuff like that. It's dark. I don't know if it's scary, but it's good. And you know, again, you can create, maybe you can't create something that'll actually scare your PCs. Create something dark. You know, something like you're in an underground dungeon and I don't know, they're using horrible futuristic science to turn humans into monsters, or you know, they're experimenting on humans, or there's a leak between Bator and Earth and demons or devils are coming through. I'm sorry. I don't want to get involved with the Blood War here, but the Blood War is another good subject for a Halloween dungeon. Blood War is the war between the demons and the devils. The demons live in the Abyss, the devils live in Bator. Devils are lawful, demons are chaotic. So in other words, demons just enjoy being evil. Devils have a law, they have a code. They punish the wicked, blah, 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 blah. But there are a lot of, if you look into the monster manual, there's a lot of monsters you can use. You can use oozes, you can use, because those are kind of creepy, right? You can use vampires, and it's really just little touches like that. But you don't, there's different kinds of horror, like there's different kinds of dark. You can make something that's more like Evil Dead campy and fun, or you can do something that's just plain dark. You could do something that might even scare your NPCs. If you are a good descriptive dungeon master and you have serious PCs, you can create a good horror campaign. But maybe not even just campaign, maybe even one dungeon. But again, to go over the rules, make sure they can die if you want it to be scary. Keep it dark. Don't try and, you know, make it unserious. Don't try and joke around unless you want it to be that way. Use a lot of creepier monsters. And again, serious PCs. And even if you have to get your PCs, tell them, be serious. You know, sometimes it gets irritating when they don't, because you're trying to do something cool here, and you got one guy going, trying to ruin your dungeon for you. But back to other games. I'm sorry, I veered off course. Call of Cthulhu. This, I've been able to create some really, really dark adventures with this. Some really good stuff. My PCs weren't even that serious and it still worked. This is built for storyline. And I know I've been, in almost every video I've mentioned this, that you should get this book. You should. It's cheap on Amazon. Buy a copy. As well as, well, why don't we thumb through Monster Manual 2? I know there's a lot of horror-themed monsters in Monster Manual 1, but let's turn through some pages. This looks good. Excellent. Turn right to a good one. The Rukarizil. That guy right there. That's good. It's stuff like that, and this guy here. This is good for darker. This is good for more horror-based. And there is a difference. Like, you can talk about darker is more, like, unsettling, more... You kind of know what I mean. It's like comparing maybe Halloween to... God, I can't think of any examples. It's like comparing the work of H.P. Lovecraft to the work of Stephen King. Stephen King's stuff is scarier, whereas H.P. Lovecraft's is more darker and unsettling. But, you know, you take a look around, you'll find lots of stuff. Look into Dragon Magazine. It depends what, you know, what issue set you're talking about, though, because, different issue sets have, like, some are for AD&D, some are for D&D 1. Actually, I don't know if they had Dragon and Dungeon when D&D 1 was out. D&D 1, interesting fact, D&D 1 only had 4 player races. Elf, Human, Dwarf, and Hobbit. I'm not joking, they had a Hobbit in it. It was AD&D, I don't know, I heard that they actually lost the copyrights or something like that, or they weren't able, like J.R. Tolkien didn't like it, or his family didn't like it. I don't know exactly the truth, but I do know that now a Hobbit is what they call a halfling. Just an interesting fact. But, yeah, that's about it on the thematic dungeons. I really hope it helps. I hope it helps you make a good dungeon for your group for Halloween. But it's always good to do holiday stuff. Like, you know, if you want, if you enjoy this video, I'll do one on I'm making a Christmas one. It sounds weird, but I made it work. Oh, and one of the NPCs in that joined them was a Snow Miser. One of my favorite Halloween Christmas characters, not Halloween. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it helps. This is Great Cthulhu signing out. I've got nothing else to say.